How exciting was Richmond? Let's roll through it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. returns to action. Christopher Bell has a dominating win in the Xfinity Series. Kyle Busch just surges forward from the back to win the Cup race. And of course, the playoffs are 1 week away in the Cup Series from cut time. This is the C&J Speedway Review. There's Corey Huffnagel. I'm Chris Burns. Get ready for hot action. Welcome back, everybody, to the C&J Speedway Review. We are talking about Richmond. We are talking about the Roval. We are talking about a guy that shouldn't have won, who did win. We got big news. My name is Chris Burns. The star of the show is across the screen. His name is Corey Huffnagel. Corey, you've got to be excited about this week's set of races.
Who wouldn't be excited about this weekend besides the fact that we're going on a road course for the first time in the playoffs? But I have to say, ever since day one, when Charlotte Motor Speedway announced that they were going to have the Roval race in the playoffs, I thought, it was just going to be stupid. But then once they started testing and then once everybody, was hitting their marks and then there were a couple of spin outs and whatever it is, I thought, you know what? This could probably be maybe the biggest wild card race of the year. I mean, if not, probably the biggest race of the year, the way I look at it. I mean, as much as I love Talladega being in the playoffs every single year, I just think the Charlotte Roval is just going to be the most talked about playoff race in 2018. And let's just face it, there's going to be a lot of unknowns going into this race this weekend. And honestly, my other question is I don't know how everyone's going to get into turn one double wide at the start of the race, because all I can just say is, turn one, that's going to be pretty much a crapshoot going in there because, once somebody spins out, then everyone's all going to check up and there's going to be nowhere to go. But I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to see what happens this weekend, and I really can't wait, to see how this all unfolds.
I think that turn one is going to turn into Calamity Corner like they used to have at the old Riverside Speedway in California,
right?
Where turn one was the most treacherous turn of all the turns. We don't race there anymore, but I can certainly see, I watched a lot of that footage of the testing, and to see Blaney, Eric Jones, a whole bunch of guys just spin out, hit the tire wall, not even make some of these turns. This is the biggest, we used to say Talladega was the biggest crapshoot in the playoffs or at any race. Talladega, Daytona, those were your crapshoots. The Charlotte Roval is about to change everything. I couldn't be more excited for a Cup race. This might be, other than Phoenix, the one I check off as it's going to be my favorite. Whoever wins, whoever loses, it's going to be the best. This is a first time. History is about to be made. I'm wicked excited. And yes, I know I'm taking a page out of your Massachusetts book here, but I'm wicked excited, bruh.
Exactly. And all I could just say is if, NASCAR hits a home run with this Roval race coming up this weekend, who knows how many Roval races we're going to have in the near future.
We talked about it last season. More road courses means more excitement. So NASCAR really should look into more road courses. Now we have 3 on the schedule every year.
Yeah.
Can we get to 4, 5, 6? That would be great. You test the drivers' all-around ability on a very demanding road course. You find out who the best of the best are. But before we get started, I got a couple shout-outs, and we're going to pay some bills. I want to give a shout-out. 48 years ago, a couple got married, and as unfortunate or fortunate, or depending on how you look at it, they begat your co-host. So happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. 48 years married. Don't know how you do it, but you do it. So congratulations on your 48th wedding anniversary. Another shout out goes to a young lady who's watching, hopefully right now, is my daughter Emma. She's not feeling well. 101 temperature, just not having a good day. Big Martin Truex fan. So, Emma, we're probably going to be talking about your driver coming up in a little while. So, Em, love you. I hope you're doing well and get well soon because you'll be at Dad's before you know it.
Right.
Now, guys, if you want to know where you can find the audio-only version of this show, if you're not watching with us week after week after week, you can go to Pocket Casts, CastBox, Stitcher, Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Google Podcast, or Spotify to find your favorite racing podcast each and every single week. Join the fun. We do the YouTube thing as a bonus. You can watch us do it live. You can watch all the screw-ups. You watch it before Eddie goes and chops it all up and puts it out there for the public to hear or see. Come have fun with us. But if you can't have fun with us live, those are the places where you can listen to us on the way to work. You can listen to us while you're working. You can listen to us while you're in the shower. I don't recommend that. However, if that's your thing, man, have fun. Just picture Corey in a banana suit and doing his thing.
Oh, God.
Whatever you want to do. But Corey, you and I have been texting back and forth for days with a lot of big news. If you can run down the news, quick hit style, who's going where, silly season is in full effect. Talk to me, kid.
Okay, so from one driver in to one driver out, so I'm going to read this one really quick. Junior Motorsports announced yesterday that Noah Gragson has been tapped to drive the one car for Junior Motorsports next year in the Xfinity Series full time. And so the way I look at this, and I kind of thought of this today, and do you remember when William Byron used to run the truck series for KBM, and then the next year he went to Junior Motorsports in Xfinity?
Yes.
So look what happened. Look what happened the year after he went to the truck series when he went to Xfinity. Wins the championship in his first full season. I think he won like 5 races a year ago, and now he's racing in the Cup Series for Hendrick Motorsports. So just imagine if Noah Gragson goes to the Xfinity Series next year, decides to do the same thing that William Byron did from last year. Let's face it. I mean, Dale Jr., he's picking up some really good talent, from the Kyle Busch Motorsports stable. And, we saw it with William Byron last year. Now we're going to see it with Noah Gragson this year. So I'm really excited to see how he's going to do in that one car. And again, I wasn't really too surprised. I mean, I knew it was kind of expected because the way I look at it this year is, all these team owners, they're going to be looking at young talent, whether if it's in the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series, that's basically, their gold mine as we speak. So with one driver in, it was also announced yesterday that AJ Allmendinger will not be back at JTG Doherty Racing in 2019. So apparently the race team announced that they were going to be making a driver change in 2019. So rumor has it that it may possibly be Ryan Preece next year. There is speculation, but we're not really sure. But other than that, JTG is going to be making a driver announcement on Friday. I believe it's at 11:30 in the morning. So we'll pretty much determine who that driver is going to be. But honestly, I could just say this. If they put Ryan Preece in the 47 car, I mean, I'd be okay with it because, like I said, here's a kid that, that deserves a top ride. And I remember last year when Joe Gibbs Racing took a chance on him, puts him in the Xfinity car in New Hampshire, and I thought, okay, let's just see how this kid does. Goes off and finishes second. Then he wins in his second start at Iowa. And now I'm thinking, okay, so Joe Gibbs is probably saying, okay, now this kid's a full potential. So the next year you put him in for I'd say 13 races or so. Boom, he wins the race at Bristol back in March. So now a lot of these team owners are looking at him and saying, okay, he could be a potential for running our team full-time next year, but honestly, we'll just have to see how it goes.
Absolutely. And once again, farming the young talent and bringing them up the right way. Preece has been one of those guys where he's exceeded expectations no matter what ride he's been in. So for him to be speculated to go in that 47, I would not have a problem at all. I know I've said it before, you don't want to bring up a guy too fast, too soon, but this is a guy that every time you put him in a new ride, he just excels. So For me, that's a fantastic fit. We also found out that Ryan Newman, I think did we mention this last week, or is this the first time we're talking about it? Ryan Newman is going where?
He's going to Roush Fenway Racing next year, so he's going to be replacing Trevor Bay in the 6th car. And for that one, I'm not too surprised with that pick either. I mean, I know Newman's kind of a consistent driver, but I really thought that, Roush was going to give Kenseth the full-time ride next year. But I think they kind of screwed Kenseth just a little bit. But And I probably think next year, I think Kenseth's probably going to do a job at Roush Fenway Racing. I think from what I heard is he might be a driver development teacher or something like that. But with Kenseth being 45, I mean, who knows how long he's got, if he wants to go racing again or not. And plus, not to mention with all these drivers that are spending time with families, that's also kind of the question of, okay, how much longer do I have, in racing?
There's some people, depending on how you look at it, and we're going to look at the racing aspect because let's face it, that's why we're here. Some people look at 45 as the prime of their life. I'm 45. Yeah. I am actually, I'm doing more now than I did when I was 35. I'm doing more now than I did when I was 30. This could be honestly the prime of my life in many aspects. But in a competitive sport like auto racing, we knew going in that Matt Kenseth was coming back to do a limited run in the 6 car to try to foster and tutor Trevor Bayne and give him knowledge and insight that Trevor Bayne wasn't getting anywhere else. So to hear that Kenseth is not going to be in that ride next year and maybe be just Mentor Jones, that's good for him. If he can teach younger drivers what it takes to wheel that car around, good for him. As far as Ryan Newman's concerned, anywhere Ryan Newman goes, he's going to be a contender. He did it with Penske. He did it with Stuart Haas. He's done it with RCR.
Yep.
And if the move that we're hearing is correct, he's going to do it with Roush Fenway Racing.
And hopefully, he could rejuvenate that team too, because even though last year they won 2 races with Stenhouse, now they pretty much thought, okay, now the 6 car needs to start winning races because let's face it, I mean, Roush Fenway hasn't been successful ever since Greg Biffle and Carl Edwards, those big guys, left the race team a couple of years ago, and this is basically kind of a rebuilding team ever since those big guys left. But then when you put Trevor Bayne in that car, and he's been in the 6 car for like the last 3 years, I mean, he's only finished like the top 5 maybe once, but then he hasn't been like really been up there within like the last few years. And I really think, Roush Fenway really needed the driver change after he's been struggling throughout the whole entire year and stuff. And also, one other thing, I want to go back with the 47 team. So if you look at it, the 47 car for JTG Doherty Racing, I mean, they're not really the best team, but if you look at it, they're kind of consistent in my book because, if you look at it, 1.5 miles, they're okay. And other tracks are all right too. But it has to be pretty much the super speedways. They're always in the mix. I mean, you just look at the race at Daytona back in July. Allmendinger finished 3rd, and then I think Busch finished 7th. So, I mean, even if Priest gets into that 47 ride, I mean, it's going to be a decent team. I mean, sure enough, I want to see how he does. But then yet again, it's not really the worst team in my opinion.
Well, the thing I have with the Dinger, before we move on to this week's races, is that, like you said, the super speedways, and let's also throw in the road courses where AJ has been fantastic. He's one of those guys that can adapt. The problem is he's not adapting to the smaller tracks, the half miles, the 3/4 miles, the 1 miles. So somewhere along the line, he's got to learn to master those tracks. Yes, he's had a couple here or there great runs at these smaller tracks, but you have to be out there every single week and be competitive. I'm not saying that he doesn't have competitive drive. AJ Allmendinger is a guy that every week wants to go out there and beat the hell out of everybody. Unfortunately, there's a disconnect. Unless you're at Daytona, Talladega, Sonoma, Watkins Glen, watch for Allmendinger this weekend at the Roval to see his all-around ability. There's just something that doesn't translate onto the smaller tracks. AJ has to find that if he's going to be successful going forward.
Right.
All right, so now that we've got the news and information out of the way, let's talk about the Go Bowling 250 Richmond Raceway this past Friday night, the Xfinity race. And to my surprise, not that I should be surprised because he has been on fire this year. Christopher Bell comes away with victory. I got to watch some of the race, and let's be honest, most of the draw of this race wasn't necessarily the fact that this is a playoff race for the Xfinity Series.
It was actually a playoff race. Yeah.
The draw of this race was the return of Dale Earnhardt Jr. to an Xfinity car, to any car. And boy, did Dale have himself a hell of a time. Corey, you watched probably all of this race. I watched it in shifts because I was doing other things. What did you take away from this?
The way I look at it, pretty much Christopher Bell made a championship statement on Friday night. And he said, if anybody wants to win this championship, they're going to have to get through me. And I just look at, the start of the Xfinity playoffs, and I just look at it. Yeah, you look at Dale Earnhardt Jr., the first time he's ever been in a race car since back at Homestead in November. And but what a good car that he had on Friday night. He led 96 laps, won the second stage, and it looked as if, he was going to win that race. I mean, he probably had, if not, maybe the winning car to win, but I'd probably say the last pit stop or the last track position, I think, kind of cost him just a little bit, but ended up coming home in fourth, which was not really a bad deal at all. And I have to say, the one disappointment that I had to take away the most would definitely be Justin Allgaier after he got caught up in a wreck in the closing laps of the race. But
you're skipping ahead, right? You're skipping ahead, happy and sad and all that happiness, but
right.
Yeah, Justin Allgaier did not have the best day ever.
But it's race one, the playoffs. I mean, anything could happen, and also, Ross Chastain being his last ride in the 42 car. I really wanted to see something out of that 42, and hopefully he can get that last win to get himself into the next round. Because let's be honest, once you go to the next round, it's basically pretty much easy street because you got 2.5 miles and a 1 mile, so it's any of those racetracks you could win, you could just advance to Homestead real easily. But I just look at, the first race in the playoffs. I mean, there were guys that I was expecting, to win the race. And, and also for once, Daniel Hemrick, he looked as if he had a great car too. And then he fell back late in the race going, but he ended up rebounding to finish third. So, but yeah, this is basically going to be the preview of, between Justin Allgaier and Christopher Bell that's going to duke it out for the title.
We said earlier in the season, before we get to the finishing order, the points picked, there's a Christopher Bell, Justin Allgaier or in the Xfinity Series. Yes, there have been some other winners, Ross Chastain being one of them, Tyler Reddick being one of them. And unfortunately, even though he's not in the playoffs, Spencer Gallagher being another. Yeah. Bell led 67 laps. When you look at the finishing order, he had the second highest lap led total behind Dale Earnhardt Jr. First time in a car in 9 months. I mean, yeah, you're right. Bell made a statement, and you said it best. If you're going to win this championship, you're going to go through me. We thought that last year in the Truck Series when Bell walked away with it. Right. Now on the Xfinity Series, I know I went back, I listened to the beginning, the preview Daytona gimmick, and I said, I don't know if they moved Bell up too soon. Right. I was wrong. Christopher Bell is the real deal. And if after this season Bell got himself a part-time or full-time Cup ride, I would not be surprised at all.
Right.
So let's break down the Go Bowling 250 from Richmond Raceway, a track that I love. It's a beautiful area. If you're ever in Richmond, go to the Midlothian Highway and go to the Paper Doll. That's all I'm going to say. The Paper Doll. Christopher Bell walks away with the victory. Ross Chastain second. Daniel Hemrick third. Once again, we mentioned this, and I'm going to keep mentioning it because I'm so proud of him. Dale Earnhardt Jr. walks away in fourth. Matt Tifft fifth. Elliott Sadler sixth. Tyler Reddick seventh. Brandon Jones eighth. Shane Lee 9 and Ryan Reed rounds out your top 10. Other notables, Ryan Truex 11th, Spencer Gallagher 12th, Austin Cindric 13th, Cole Custer 15th, Ryan Preece 18th, not the best run, but not the worst run. Justin Allgaier, a disappointing 32nd. Ty Majeski, who we've talked about before, and we hope well for this kid, 34th. Jeff Green finished 39th, which means he didn't finish last. Do you know why? Because Morgan Shepherd showed up and finished 40th. Give me your happy and give me your sad, my friend.
So, of course, my sad would definitely have to be Justin Allgaier. I mean, started fifth. He got caught up in that wreck in the closing lap of the race, and but like I said, it's only race one, so anything can happen. And hopefully, Allgaier can make it into the next round. My happy I would definitely have to go to Ross Chastain because being his last ride in the 42 before going back to JD Motorsports. So I think by finishing second. I think if my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's got enough points to the good, to go to the next round. But then yet again, you got the Roval, so anything can happen. You just never know, where he's going to end up. But good run for him in that 42 car, though.
Well, when we get into the points in just a minute, you'll see that Ross Chastain and Justin Allgaier have a lot more to be worried about than Hemrick and Bell. But you know what? I agree with you. Justin Allgaier is my sad. He led 37 laps. He looked like he had a really great car, but he got caught up in that wreck. Very unfortunate. And, Justin Allgaier right now, I know I'm scooting ahead too, but Justin Allgaier is at the top of what I call the danger zone. He's in third, and we'll talk about the points in a minute. My happy, there's no one else. There's no one else but Dale Earnhardt Jr. Gets in a car, first time in 9 months, and he finishes fourth in a very competitive race. Good on him. When you get out there, Dale Earnhardt is not running for the Cup Series championship. Dale Earnhardt's not running anything except his mouth on NBC Sports, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's his job. He is a commentator on NBC Sports. But for him to get out there, strap in for the first time in 9 months, and wheel this car to a fourth-place finish, you know what? I tip my hat. It's my brother's favorite driver. Was my brother's favorite driver. It's my girlfriend's favorite driver, the Eternal Flame and the Goddess of Love. When you see Dale Earnhardt Jr. out there, it's a plus. It's a blessing. It's a fun time. I was glad I got to see this. But now, we go to the points and my commentary going forward on the points, and then we'll go to the picks. Christopher Bell leads the way with 2090. In first, Daniel Hemrick second with 2062. Justin Allgaier third with 2056. Ross Chastain is fourth with 2053. Elliott Sadler is fifth with 2051. Matt Tifft is sixth with 2047. Tyler Reddick seventh with 2046. Brandon Jones eighth with 2035. In a virtual tie with Cole Custer ninth, 2035. Ryan Truex is 10th with 2033. Austin Cindric 11th, 2028. And Ryan Reed sits in that unfortunate catbird seat at 2027. The thing I wanted to mention about this danger zone is right now, Bell and Hemrick sit 2090 and 2062. There's a little wiggle room for those guys. The difference between third and 12th, Allgaier and Ryan Reed, is only 29 points. 29 points separates third and 12th, which means there's a lot of room for things to change dramatically in the standings. So am I worried for Justin Allgaier? No, this guy knows how to find his way to victory lane and has shown us that 5 times this season. But I look at the list below him. Elliott Sadler, former champion, has what it takes to get to victory lane. Tyler Reddick has a win underneath him, knows what it takes to get to victory lane. Then you have some of the young guns like Brandon Jones, Cole Custer, Austin Cindric, all of them jonesing for that first win on the Xfinity Series to move forward. There's a lot that any of these guys can lose between 3rd and 12th going forward. Your opinion, Corey?
Yeah, I just look at the point standings. So I did the math, and so the difference between third and the cutoff line is right now 21 points. So I would probably say that
line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the cutoff line is pretty much between 8th and 9th, and the way I look at it, you just look at the 4 guys that are on that bottom. You look at guys like Cole Custer and Ryan Truex and Cindric and Reed. I would probably say Custer, is going to bounce out of that cutoff line, and I'd probably say like my first 4 drivers that would be out, would be Jones and Cindric and Reed and Truex. The way I look at it, but the way I look at this right now, I mean, we're going to the Roval on Saturday, and it's only 55 laps for this race. So, once these guys get caught up in a wreck, or if something happens during the race, those points could be basically just, shuffle just a little bit. And then, you'll have some guys that are either below the cutoff line or just right on that edge, like, pretty much like, you have to step it up, for next week because, we don't want to see anybody going into Dover and have to go in and do the must-win situation because, we've seen that before in all 3 series. But I just look at it, I really think, these guys are going to make it through pretty much with consistency at this point. But with all that matter, I could just kind of see, Bell and then Allgaier winning most of the races going forward.
Yep, and, you mentioned it just now. It's always the guys that are in that need-to-win situation that end up showing up at that cutoff race, finishing 1, 2, or 3 to cement their way forward. I can see right now, looking at this list, not that this is their first playoff race, so let's throw all of this out the window.
Right.
Just for right now. I can see a Cindric, a Ryan Truex, a Ryan Reed, a Cole Custer, a Brandon Jones coming up big this weekend in Charlotte, although none of them are my picks.
Right.
We'll find out when we talk about the Roval, but I can see any one of these guys, just blazing forward and making a statement saying, I am for real.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to the picks. We both picked Dale Earnhardt Jr. I picked him as my lock. Corey picked him as his sleeper. He finished fourth. I picked as my sleeper Justin Allgaier. He finished 32nd. You add that together, you get 36. My finish this week was 18. We already mentioned that you took Dale Jr. as your sleeper, but you took Daniel Hemrick as your lock. That was a third place finish. You add that together, you get 7. You divide that by 2. Your finish this week, Corey, was a 3.5. Good on you, my friend. You are the Xfinity champion of the world.
Thank you.
This week, coming out of Richmond. Big ups to you. Thank you. F you. Bye. Anyway, we move on to Saturday Night Under the Lights, the Federated Auto Parts 500. And if you had asked me when qualifying was over, we recorded our show before qualifying. If you'd have asked me if I thought Kyle Busch could wheel his way from near the end of the field all the way to win this race and lead 92 laps in the process, I'd have told you were smoking crack. But that's exactly what happened. What also happened is that the Big Four led a majority of the laps. Kyle Busch, 92. Kevin Harvick, 40. Martin Truex, 16. Chase Elliott led 34. But let's go down the list of Brad Keselowski, who led 67 laps. There weren't that many lap leaders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 leaders in a 40-man field. This is insane. This was a statement for a lot of these guys. When you look at Ricky Stenhouse, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, Eric Almirola, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, only one of those guys is not in the playoffs.
Right.
This was a statement race for a lot of these guys. I'm going to tip my hat right here. Tying Kevin Harvick for the season lead with 7 wins was Kyle Busch. I hate saying nice things about Kyle Busch. I'd rather stick a rake up my nose than say nice things about Kyle Busch. But let's be honest, guys. This guy's a talent.
Yeah.
He is the real effing deal. He's the 2015 champion. He is neck and neck with the 2014 champion right now as the favorite, Vegas odds, to be the next champion. You have last year's champion nipping right at their heels. You have, I can't remember when he won. Was it 2009? You have Brad Keselowski nipping at their heels, and you have Chase Elliott coming up huge in this race. This was fantastic. What did you take away from this race?
Well, the way I look at it, if you look at the top 12 after Saturday night's finish, all 12 drivers were pretty much playoff drivers. And then pretty much the rest of the 16, pretty much finished in the top 19. So it pretty much, goes to show you that, these playoff drivers, they were pretty close all night. And then, you had the one finish, you had the one part in the race where, Brad Keselowski was leading. And then pretty much Kyle Busch just took the lead right at the end. But going back to Martin Truex Jr., he led the most laps, and if it wasn't for that uncontrolled tire, I think it was after stage 2 or something like that, he pretty much had the car to win. And of course, everybody on NBC was saying Truex has never won on a short track or so forth, and it's not.
Did that not annoy the hell out of you?
Yeah,
come on.
I would. Yeah, I pretty much. Yeah, I would say it did, and I just look at it. I said, so what if he hasn't won on a short track? I mean, guys, he's won the championship last year, and so forth, But the way I just look at it,
fashion, no less.
Right, in dominating fashion. But then this was also a statement that the big 3 ended up finishing first, second, and third, with Kyle, Kevin, and Martin finishing in the top 3. So this again is also pretty much the preview of what we're going to expect in the playoffs. But put it this way: you go back to last week. There were some guys in the playoffs that had trouble, whether if it was either a cut tire or if they got caught up in a wreck and so forth. But then there were guys that, that had to rebound or pretty much play conservative because nobody wants to go to the Charlotte Roval and try to win it all because, there are some guys in that desperation mode that have to win this weekend. You got guys like Denny Hamlin, you got Eric Jones. Those are the only 2 guys that I can think of, that have to go in, win the race, and move on. Because, even if you run in the back all day to expect somebody to have a problem, it's not going to work like that. Even if you finish second and the other guy has problems, it's not going to work like that either. But you also look at, the drivers' interviews on Saturday night after the race. They were either scared or they were nervous about going to the Charlotte Roval this weekend because, A, we don't know what to expect, and B, we haven't raced on it except test on it before. So, and like I said, there's going to be a lot of unknowns going into this weekend, and we just don't know what to expect. But, and I can pretty much see some playoff drivers, struggling, or we could actually see a non-playoff driver win this weekend because, let's face it, a lot of unknowns. We don't know what's going to happen, so it's going to make it very exciting and very interesting.
Kyle Busch said it best when he's in his post race when he's like, "How nervous are you about the Charlotte Roval next week?" He goes, "I'm scared to death. I'm absolutely scared to death about this track that we've only done testing on. We've never run on it," and that bit of honesty from him went a long way for me. Does it mean I'm going to be wearing 18 M&M's gear? Hell no. But what it means is I've gained a little bit more respect for Kyle Busch just for coming out and saying, "Hey, look, this is a crapshoot. This is exactly what Chris and Corey have been talking about." I wish he would have said something like that, but he didn't. This is exactly what Chris and Corey have been talking about since February when we started this season. It's anybody's race. I can look down this list of 40 drivers that started this week if they all start next week, and even, Greg Alding. Greg Alding has a fighting chance. Regan Smith has a fighting chance. Allmendinger, on his way out, has a fighting chance. Paul Menard has a fighting chance. Anyone in the field has a fighting chance going into the Roval. Why? Because it's an unknown. It's kind of like putting a boxer against a guy he's never, he's been training for, say, Vladimir Klitschko for months. Klitschko comes up with an injury. They shove somebody else into the match. Now you just have to go in there and throw fists. Right. That's exactly what the Charlotte Roval is. But before we we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But let's go over the finishing order. Like you said, the top 12 were all playoff drivers, and Kyle Busch walked away with the victory. And when I say walked away, he didn't just walk away. He strutted away with that victory. Kevin Harvick second, Martin Truex third, Chase Elliott fourth, Eric Almirola fifth, Austin Dillon sixth, Kyle Larson seven, Jimmy Johnson 8, Brad Keselowski 9, and Clint Bowyer rounds out the top 10. Other notables, Eric Jones 11, Alex Bowman 12th, Joey Logano 14th, Denny Hamlin 16th after some bad luck. He really did battle back. Good for him. Kyle Busch 18, Ryan Blaney 19, William Byron 20, Jamie McMurray, who's soon to be not having a job, 21st. Matt Kenseth, 25th. Bubba Wallace, who I would love to see do better, but it just doesn't seem to be in the cards, 27th. Wow. Matt DiBenedetto, who we keep talking about, Guido for the 41. Come on, make it happen. Yeah. 34th. And Greg Alding rounds out the top 40. Give me your happy, give me your sad, because I think we're going to differ on this one.
All right, so my happy for this one would definitely have to go to Eric Almirola. I mean, he finished in the top 5 on Saturday night, so good run for him in that 10 car, and I'm hoping that he can get a win before the season's out. No question about it. So my sad for this one would definitely have to go to Denny Hamlin because, like I said, he struggled at Las Vegas last weekend, and then he struggled at Richmond this past weekend as well. So. And now he's going into the Charlotte Roval where he has to try and win it all. And, and let's face it, Hamlin's only won like one road course in the Cup Series. And I think that was Watkins Glen a few years ago. So I would probably say, if Hamlin, doesn't make it to the next round, I'm not going to be too surprised at all because I just look at this team, yes, I mean, they didn't have really the best start when it comes to the playoffs. But then yet again, I just don't see this team moving forward.
Okay, well, we differed a little bit. I thought we would differ greatly. We're on a similar page, I'll say that. My happy went to Eric Almirola. What a statement he made. I am in this to win this. And in just a minute, when I break down how the playoffs, how these guys can move forward, you'll understand. My sad went to William Byron. God, what can this kid do to get a break? Right now, he is, if I go through my notes here, he's just got problems. He's really got to step it up.
Right.
And I know that it just kills me. I know he's not a playoff driver, but William Byron has to do something.
Yeah.
We talked about Hendrick Motorsports. We talked about how are they going to translate when Gordon retired and then Junior retired. And now Jimmy Johnson's the lead dog. And you have all these young guys underneath. We both said it in that first episode that I said I went back and listened to, that William Byron was going to be the guy to come up big. Chase Elliott has actually been the guy that came up even bigger. So William Byron needs to do something in order to jumpstart his Cup career.
I would say so too. And we'll just have to see how he does this year. And if not, he'll probably figure it out once next year comes.
Let's hope so, because let's go through the points. We'll go through the picks, and then I have 3 sheets right here of breakdown. Mathematical Jones. I worked my ass off on this. Martin Truex leads the pack with 21-41. Kyle Busch is in second with 21-25. Kevin Harvick third with 21-13. Brad Keselowski is fourth with 21-11. Joey Logano fifth with 20-81. That's a 30-point difference, and that's going to come up big coming up to the Charlotte Roval.
Yeah.
Eric Almirola sixth, a big jump for him, 20-79. Kyle Larson seventh with 20-73. Kurt Busch is eighth with 20-71. Chase Elliott is ninth with 20-66 in a virtual tie with another big surprise moving up the standings, Austin Dillon in 20-66, 10th place. Alex Bowman 11th with 20-61. Ryan Blaney 12th with 20-60. Clint Boyer 13th with 20-56. Jimmy Johnson 14th. Again, absorb that. 7-time champion, Jimmy Johnson, 14th with 20-54. Eric Jones, 15th with 20-39. Denny Hamlin rounds out the top 16 with 20-31. We've already gone over who we think is going to be eliminated. I'm going to ask you a different question before we go into the breakdown of how each guy can move forward other than our 3 winners. I'm sorry, 2 winners and Martin Truex on points.
Right.
Give me a surprise that's going to make the round of 12 that nobody saw coming.
All right, so my surprise to make the round of 12, I'm going to have to say Austin Dillon.
You read my mind. I have him starred right here.
Yeah.
We're too good at this. We should just be on NASCAR America, and they should fire Bobby Labonte.
Well, no, actually, Bobby Labonte's on Race Hub.
Oh, you're right. Anyway, Sunday's inaugural Bank of America Roval 400, which is on 2 p.m. Eastern, is going to be a big deal, but the fact that it serves as the elimination race for the first round of the Cup playoffs kind of ramps up its importance. The playoff field will be cut to 16 to 12 drivers, as we all know, for the second round. The drivers who sit outside the top 12 right now, Clint Boyer, Jimmy Johnson, Eric Jones, and Denny Hamlin. Clint Boyer is 4 points to the bad. Jimmy Johnson is 6 points to the bad. Eric Jones, 21 points to the bad. And Denny Hamlin, an astounding 29 points to the bad. All need a fantastic race to get in.
Yeah.
Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex have already advanced. Keselowski and Busch, Kyle, have already stamped their ticket with a win. Truex is in on points. They're the only 3 drivers who have secured spots in round 2. But here are the scenarios, before we talk about the Roval, on clinching playoffs spots to go to the second round. We'll start with Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick has to start his car and complete a lap to clinch a playoff. So when you shared that story this week, I wanted to punch you square in the mouth, but I understand you're in it. That's how we get people to listen to us and do what we do.
Right.
I get it. But Kevin Harvick has to complete 1 lap. Let me raise up my flag real quick. That's all it takes. 1 lap. Joey Logano. How does he get in? If there's a new winner, Joey Logano will clinch by 33 points. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Almirola, Larson, Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, or Alex Bowman, Logano would clinch with 30 points. If Ryan Blaney wins, Logano would clinch with 31 points. So basically, Logano, you're in.
Yeah.
Eric Almirola. If there's a new winner, Eric Almirola would clinch with 35 points to the good. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Larson, Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, or Alex Bowman, which may be possible, he would clinch with 32 points. If Blaney wins, Almirola would clinch with 33 points. Moving on to Kyle Larson, if there's a new winner, Larson would clinch with 40 points to the good. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, or Alex Bowman, Larson would clinch with 37 points. If Ryan Blaney wins, Larson would clinch with 38 points to the good. Kurt Busch. If there's a new winner, Kurt Busch would clinch with 43 points to the good. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, this is all playoff wins, guys, by the way.
Right.
Or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, Larson, Elliott, Dillon, or Bowman, Busch would clinch with 40 points to the good. If Blaney wins, Larson clinches with 41 points to the good. Chase Elliott. If there's a new winner, Elliott would clinch with 48 points to the good. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, Larson, Kurt Busch, Dillon, or Bowman, Elliott would clinch with 45 points to the good. If Ryan Blaney wins, Elliott would clinch with 46 points to the good. I know this sounds repetitive, but guys, this is the math that goes into this. This is why this is exciting.
Right.
Austin Dillon. If there is a new winner, Dillon would clinch with 48 points to the good. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, Larson, Kurt Busch, Elliott, or Bowman, Dillon would clinch with 45 points to the good. If Ryan Blaney wins, Dillon would clinch with 46 points to the good. Alex Bowman. If there is a new winner, Bowman would clinch with 53 points. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, Larson, Kurt Busch, Elliott, or Dillon, is this starting to sound crazy? It is. But that's what this playoff is. This is exciting.
Right.
Bowman would clinch with 50 points to the good. If Ryan Blaney wins, I don't know why Blaney keeps coming up as if he wins, it just throws everything off.
Right.
If Blaney wins, Bowman would clinch with 51 points to the good. You've heard Ryan Blaney's name a whole bunch of times. Here comes Ryan Blaney. If there's a new winner, Blaney would clinch with 54 points to the good. If there's a repeat winner or a win by Truex, Harvick, Logano, Almirola, Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, or Austin Dillon, Blaney would clinch by 51 points. If Bowman wins, Blaney would clinch with 52 points to the good. Clint Boyer. If there's a repeat winner or a win by, here we go again, Truex, Logano, Almirola, Larson, Kurt Busch, Elliott, or Dillon, Boyer would clinch with 55 points to the good. With a win, Boyer would clinch the next spot.
Yeah.
Boyer would also clinch on points with a new winner and some help. I am not mathematically that good to tell you what help that is.
Right.
Jimmy Johnson. Oh, good granny, here we go. With a win, obviously, Johnson would clinch the next round in the playoffs. Johnson could clinch on points with a new winner and some help. Eric Jones, with a win, obviously. The next three guys, it's the same. Eric Jones, Denny Hamlin. With a win, those guys could clinch the next round. And they could clinch on points with a new winner and some help.
Right.
This is probably the most chaotic first round of the playoffs that we've seen since 2014. Easily.
I could definitely agree.
So we move on. We go to the Roval. We've been talking about this for months and months and months and months, and it's finally here. I couldn't be more pumped for this. Let's talk about the Xfinity Series. When are they running, and where can we find them?
Okay, so Saturday we have the the Blue Cross Blue Shield 200 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So this race will be 55 laps, and the race will be 3 o'clock Eastern Time on NBCSN, and stream it live on the NBC Sports app. And then, of course, unfortunately, PRN, the Performance Racing Network, will be racing there this weekend. Well, actually, we'll be there this weekend. So,
terrible.
Yes.
Terrible.
So, looking at the entry list, few key notables besides playoff drivers. Well, we have Cole Custer, we have Elliott Sadler, Matt Tiff, Brendan Gaughan is going to be back at the 3-car for this weekend, only for road courses and so forth. Ross Chastain is back at his place in the 4-car as well. Then you have Michael Annett, you have Justin Allgaier, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Truex, Ryan Reed, Ryan Preece, Brandon Jones, Christopher Bell, Daniel Hemrick, Austin Cindric, Spencer Gallagher, Alex LeBay, Justin Marks will be on the 42 car, Jeremy Clements, Ty Majeski, Kaz Gralla, let's see, Andy Lally, Jeff Green, and of course Chase Briscoe.
Jeff Green's in the race?
Yes.
40th. It's a foregone conclusion. 39th or 40th. Let's just throw it out there now.
Right.
All right, so for my picks this week, I know on the Cup Series I'm going only playoff drivers, but on the Xfinity Series, I'm looking for guys who need to either make a statement in the playoffs or cement themselves going forward, much like my lock, Ryan Preece. He's fighting for a Cup ride. He's a kid that deserves a Cup ride, and with a fantastic finish at the Roval, it's a foregone conclusion. If you can finish top 5 at the Charlotte Roval, first race ever, you're pretty much guaranteed that 47 ride, kid. That's
right.
My opinion. I'm sticking to it. My sleeper is a playoff guy who needs to get moving and get to that next level. It's going to be Austin Cindric.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he's one of those guys that runs really well when it comes to the road courses, and the last road course didn't really, impress me that much, and I really expect him to do something up at Road America, but, just have to see how it goes. So my lock for this weekend, real easy, and I kind of thought of this out of the top of my head, but it definitely has to be Justin Allgaier because, let's face it, he's won 2 out of the last 3 road courses because he won at Mid-Ohio and Road America. So I'm thinking, all right, so if he's that good on road courses, there's no doubt in my mind I just pick him as a lock at the Roval because, for a guy that has been racing on short tracks all the years, and especially super speedways, whatever, I didn't really expect him to be a road course guy until this year. And once he started winning on the road courses, I thought, this kid, could win anywhere if you think about it. And then my sleeper for this weekend, this one was also a little bit of a tough pick, but I kind of thought, all right, my sleeper, I'm going to go with Matt Tifft because if you go back to the race at Road America, started on pole, won a stage, he ended up finishing second. And let's not forget, last year he almost won the road course at Road America, which he got taken out on the late laps going. So I thought, all right, so if Tifft ran pretty well at Road America, there is a good possibility that he could win it on the Roval.
Absolutely. Good picks all the way around. But then we move to Sunday, 2 p.m., it is the Charlotte Roval race for the Cup Series. Again, I couldn't be more pumped. This is going to be history, guys. History. I'm excited. Corey's excited. The drivers are scared to death. Tell us where we can watch or listen to the race, and then we'll break it down.
So the race on Sunday will be the Bank of America Roval 400. So no, guys, it is not 334 laps on the road course, if anybody was wondering. The race will be 109 laps. And the stages for Sunday are going to be 25, 25, and 59, if I can do the math right, if I'm not mistaken. So
You're good.
All right. So the race on Sunday will be 2:00 Eastern time on NBC. That is right, NBC this weekend. Stream it live on the NBC Sports app. And, of course, unfortunately, PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Boo!
will be there. Will be there this weekend as well. So I'm looking at the entry list, and besides with the playoff drivers, there are a few drivers on the entry list this weekend. You have guys like Daniel Hemrick, who will be back in the 8 car this weekend, second start that he will make for Richard Childress Racing. You also have Trevor Bayne, who will be in the 6 car this weekend for Roush Fenway. You have Justin Marks, who will be in the 15 car. One of those guys that runs really well when it comes to road courses. And then, of course, you have pretty much Stanton Barrett in the 51, and then you have Regan Smith in the 95, and, of course, Jeffrey Earnhardt in the 96.
Wow, Stanton Barrett. Haven't heard that name in a while. Great to see him back on the track.
Yes.
All right, you get to start because I am breaking something out that you viewers on YouTube will get to see. Those of you on audio only on our many platforms, which I'll run by later on in the broadcast, you won't get to see. But because this is the biggest crapshoot, I'm opening something new. Corey, your lock, your sleeper, and because it's a cup race, you're hopeful.
All right, so for my lock this weekend, I was kind of leaning towards Truex because if you look at the last two finishes, actually the last three finishes when it comes to road course, first, and second, and I thought, I am kind of thinking about that, and even though of course Truex is the guy that knows how to run good when it comes to the road courses, especially the last 2 years or so, but my luck is going to be kind of different. So I'm kind of change this a little bit around. So it's going to be a non-playoff driver, but my lock for this weekend would definitely have to go with the 47 of AJ Allmendinger.
Fantastic.
And the reason why I'm picking him is, I almost forgot that, this is a guy that runs really well when it comes to road courses. And let's not forget, he has that lone win at Watkins Glen back in 2014, which, of course, he had that epic battle with Marcus Ambrose. So now I'm thinking, okay, even though Allmendinger's not going to have a ride next year, what would be better than scoring a win this Sunday at the Roval, and then possibly, have team owners be like, okay, maybe we want him for our team next year. It could be anybody. We just never know, but we'll just see what happens. So my sleeper for this weekend, I'm going to go with a guy that won the road course back in August and has run pretty decent until he won at Watkins Glen. And my sleeper, I'm going to go with Chase Elliott because, after he won at Watkins Glen, I thought, all right, so if he's a good road racer, there is no doubt in my mind I'll probably pick him to watch at the Roval on Sunday and see how he does this weekend. And then, of course, my hopeful. Okay, so my hopeful, this one was a little bit tough to pick by, but if I would have had to pick a name out of the hat right now, boy, this is this is really tough to pick. But I'm going to say my hopeful for this one, I'm going to go with Jamie McMurray. I mean, he's a decent road racer, but, not really the best. But you kind of see his name once or twice, when it comes to road racing. So hopefully that one car can score a win on Sunday.
Well, I want to bring up two things because, A, I missed the picks for the Cup Series. That's my fault. I'm the guy that writes it down. Blame me. But you mentioned two things. You mentioned A. Allmendinger and his road course. He's a road course specialist.
Yeah.
You also mentioned Marcus Ambrose. I got a funny Ambrose story. I think it was 2012. I was up in New Hampshire for the Cup race with my friend Mike Frost and a couple other guys. Had a great weekend. And in the opening laps, Ambrose started 13th. I believe Harvick started 15th. They're side by side. And Ambrose is just getting into Harvick like nobody's business. And every year I rent a scanner. Every year I've got a scanner in my ear, and I'm tuned into Harvick's radio when I'm not listening to MRN, the voice of NASCAR.
The voice of NASCAR.
And see, you're into it too. And Harvick gets over the radio and says, if Ambrose gets into me one more time for no reason, I'm going to dump him. And his spotter says, you do what you got to do. So they go around. I'm sitting about 50 yards shy of the start-finish line as they go to cross it. I'm on just out of turn 4. And I'm watching the 9, and at the time the 29, just battle. And Ambrose is just all over the track. Don't know if it was a tire issue. Don't know if it was a wedge issue. Don't know if it was a track bar issue. Don't care. Ambrose, in the entry of turn 3, gets into Harvick. They come out of turn 4. Harvick's got a nose. He dumps Ambrose. He's out of the race. Marcus Ambrose should never have been a Cup driver, ever. He was just junk. I have no love for Marcus Ambrose. I'm sorry. That's all there is to it. And then I'm going to get to the second part where you said picking a name out of a hat. Let's go to the picks first. Well, you had Kyle Busch as your lock. This might be one of the closer finishes we've ever had.
Right.
You had Kyle Busch as your lock. He won the race. You had Kyle Larson as your sleeper. He finished 7th. You had Clint Boyer as your hopeful. He finished 10th. You add that together. You get 18. You divide by 3. Corey, your finish was 6. I had Brad Keselowski as my lock. He finished 9th. I had Martin Truex Jr. as my sleeper. He finished third. I had Kevin Harvick as my hopeful. He finished second. That's a finish of 14. You divide that by 3, and it's 4.66666666 all down the line. Strangely enough, I'm the Cup Series champion this week. But on to the picks this week. You mentioned picking names out of a hat. The Charlotte Roval is the biggest crapshoot other than Talladega or Daytona on the circuit. I did say to you and to our listeners that for the playoffs, I'm picking only playoff drivers. So what I did was I took every name in the playoffs and I put them in the official Loki and Jabroni mix, which you can see here. This is a real thing, guys. This is not. Yep. So basically, blind draw. My 3 picks this week are blind draw. So I want to pick my hopeful first, and it goes to Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin is my hopeful.
Okay.
This is completely legit. I'm showing you as I go into the bucket of gimmicks, which is a trademark of the Loki and Jabroni Show. If you use it without our permission, I will come to your house and I will kill your bunny.
Oh, boy.
My sleeper this week is Ryan Blaney. So,
all right,
guys, this is completely blind. I may lose horrendously this week because I'm going into the bucket of gimmicks, but I'm shaking up one more time. You see all those papers in there? Dear Lord, if you love me even a little bit, you will let me pick a driver that I can actually get behind as my lock. All right, winner, winner, chicken dinner. My lock this week, MTJ, Martin Truex Jr.
Okay.
So, the picks for this week. Corey has Allmendinger, Elliott, McMurray. I have MTJ, Blaney, and Hamlin. But again, the Charlotte Roval is so unpredictable that we cannot stress enough that none of these guys have run this course other than testing.
Right.
You could pick Gray Galding, and he has a fighter's chance to win. You could pick Timmy Hill. Timmy Hill has a fighter's chance to win. Everyone that is entered into this race has a fighter's chance to win.
Right.
Basically, I'm handing it over to fate. Corey went with smarts, with the exception of McMurray, pick a name out of a hat. I went completely blind draw Jones. Think of the names that are still in that bucket. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Keselowski, Logano. A lot of guys that have a lot of talent and championship hopes, but I actually didn't put Harvick into the bucket because all Kevin Harvick has to do is complete one lap, and he's in the playoffs. So 15 names in the bucket. I chose 3. Let's see where we go. It's the last of this particular notebook that I've been using since season 1. Next week, just to show you, it's going to be yellow. So the picks are going on yellow paper rather than white paper.
Right.
Corey, I cannot remember a race where I've been this excited to see, whether it's Xfinity, Trucks, Cup. This is going to be a fantastic weekend. Guys, before I ask Corey to tell us where you can find us, don't forget you can find us on Pocket Cast, CastBox, Stitcher, Anchor.fm, Apple Podcast, Breaker, Google Podcast, and Spotify. If you can't get to this, the live feed that we do every single week, find us on audio only. Listen to us while you're driving in the car. Heck, listen to us while you're at the racetrack and tell your friends, hey, you ought to listen to these C&J Speedway review guys. They're great. And we are great. And Corey, you add so much to this show. So right now, I want you to add something and tell people where they can find us on social media.
Okay, so social media, follow us on Facebook. Twitter, we are at CJ_Speedway. And then Instagram, we are at CJ Speedway.
Facebook, find us anywhere. I don't care.
Yep.
You know, as much as I hate to do this, and we joked about it last night when we went off the air on the Loki and Jabroni Show, which is another podcast you should be listening to. You haven't mentioned Miss Chelsea once. So why don't you just go ahead and mention Miss Chelsea before all of us lose our minds and say, wow, Corey is having problems in Happy Land?
Well, all I could just say is,
Oh, here we go.
her. All I could just say is her driver is pretty happy that he is in the next round, and obviously that she loves him, and of course that I love her very
Oh
much,
dear God,
and
here it comes.
and so it was actually kind of a good weekend for us because we were actually at New Hampshire Motor Speedway this past weekend
I saw that.
as part of Full Throttle weekend. So what it is, folks, was the Pinty Series, which was the series in Canada, came down to race for the very first time in the United States, which was won by none other than Kevin Lacroix himself. And no surprise to me, Lacroix ended up dominating the whole race. He didn't even look back twice a bit, or so forth. Then you had the K&N Pro Series East, which was won by none other than Larry McReynolds' son, Brandon McReynolds, driving
Nice.
the 74 car. I was really happy about that. And one thing I looked back in that race was it looked as if Derek Kraus had the winning car. And then I think that last caution kind of, burnt him just a little bit, and pretty much cost him the win and so forth. And then you had the modifieds, which was the 250 lap, and I mean the 250 lap modified race, the Musket 250, which was won by none other than Chase Dowling. I didn't see the finish, but we only stayed until like 50 laps to go, and I kind of thought to myself, geez, having the modifieds go on a 1 mile track for like 250 laps. I mean, it felt as if it was long, but then yet again, the modifieds, they put on a great show in the Northeast. Whether if you're from New England or wherever you go to, I mean, the modifieds, they've just been popular. I mean, you have guys that have come up to the ranks, Jimmy Spencer and Steve Park, all those guys that came up to the modified ranks, and then of course, the legend, the late Ted Christopher, who I probably say was the face of the modified series right before his passing and so forth. But I was really happy New Hampshire Motor Speedway kind of did something pretty special, because they thought, all right, so since we're not going to have 2 cup races again, why don't we do something one weekend where we could have the lower divisions come down, pretty much, the K&N series, the modifieds, which, they have the 250 lap race. And not to mention, series is outside the United States, like the Pinty series. And I thought the Peak Mexico series was coming, but I don't think they didn't show up this year. But I'm hoping, and New Hampshire Motor Speedway better be watching this. So I'm hoping they do something really special next year for Full Throttle weekend. Now, the one thing I really want them to change and I really want them to add on the list is I know the K&N series has their whole East-West combination race. I probably say maybe once or twice a year. And then of course you also have the twin races, which they have at South Boston Speedway in Virginia. But I would say, they should have a K&N Pro East-West series race twice a year, one at Gateway and then also New Hampshire, for the Full Throttle weekend as well. And then I think for the modified race, maybe cut it down by 200 laps. I mean, I know 250 was kind of long in my opinion, but it was the very first time at a long race for the modified series, but maybe just tweak it down by maybe 50 laps short. I mean, that would be great, for everybody. But then yet again, also have the Peak Mexico series come up, any of these series to come up and try for about a weekend or so.
Absolutely. I think the longer races are better for them because if you're an elder statesman like Ted Christopher, God rest his soul, like Richie Evans, God rest his soul, the longer races prepare you for the next level. So the longer races are good. And for the entertainment that you were provided this weekend at this racing extravaganza, good for them, good for you, good for anybody who sat in those stands.
Yeah.
Myself, I was at Motor Jam this weekend at Waterford Speed Bowl in Connecticut. Stood next to the Batmobile. I stood next to the Bat Cycle. I was there with Eric Estrada. And if you don't know who Eric Estrada is, find out. Go look it up on your Google machine and then comment on the C+J Speedway Review Facebook page or our Twitter page, which is,
of course, the C+J Speedway Review.
And what's the address for Twitter?
All right, CJ_Speedway.
If you figure out who Eric Estrada is, I was standing 5 feet from him. Amazing.
Mm.
Motor Jam is a fantastic thing. If it comes to your town, go see it. I saw the Dukes of Hazzard car, the Back to the Future car, the Starsky and Hutch car. I saw a lot of locals that came out and brought their souped up gimmicks, especially my favorite one, and I will share the picture. I have to steal it from the Eternal Flame and the Goddess of Love's Facebook. I stood next to this souped up old station wagon with fake wood panel siding, which immediately caught my eye because I joke about those cars often, but it was great. Real quick, off topic before we close out, sad weekend for both of us in the NFL. What do the Patriots have to do to bounce back?
Well, all I can just say is they got to start winning. And I didn't see the game on Sunday. I saw a little bit of the game,
they
but
got to start winning. What are you new to this? Of course they have to start winning.
Honestly, all I can just say this: if they lose to Miami on Sunday, I'm gonna be really surprised. But then yet again, Patriots just have to rebound. I mean, I know it's not really the best start of the season, but then yet again, and also not to mention, I was just looking at the finish for the modified race, and boy, it came down to a wild finish between Priest and Bonsignor and some other guy, and I guess Chase Dowling pretty much snuck through everybody to take home the win. But I just look at the Pats this weekend. I mean, yeah, they got to play Miami. I think they're going to smoke them this weekend. There's no question about it. And yeah, of course, Detroit this past Sunday, we shouldn't have lost that game. I don't know how we lost, but besides the fact, Matt Patricia beats the master, and pretty much, congrats on him and the Lions. And of course, I have a friend of mine, which I give a shout out. His name's Mark. He's a huge Lions fan.
Hello, Mark.
And I texted him on Monday. I said, "Hey, dude, congrats on the Lions win." And I said, "Yeah, it was a great game." And I said, "It sure was." But yeah, that's all I could just say is, Pats, they just have to start. They got to start rebounding. They just have to win this weekend.
Well, if you remember a couple of years ago, I'm sure it's fresh in your mind as it is in producer Eddie Focus's mind, as it is in the Eternal Flames' mind. The year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl and ultimately lost to the New England Patriots, we started 1-2. We're 1-2 now. Basically, if you want to win a championship, defense wins championships. And when a football team gives up 519 yards of offense and then goes to overtime, you need to fix your stuff. And the Falcons, that's their problem. I'm going to raise my gimmick here, and I'm going to show you, for you YouTubers, my Falcon thing right here. I have Falcon tattoos. I am black and red until I'm cold and dead. But if these guys can't fix their stuff, I will never change my allegiance, but I will maybe cut down on the football intake because I can't take too much more heartbreak in my lifetime. It's like being a Cleveland Browns fan, except Atlanta actually makes the playoffs.
Right.
So, and congratulations to the Cleveland Browns who won a game this past Thursday. Congratulations to them. They took the Steelers to the limit. They took the Saints, who we lost to last weekend, to the limit. And then the Falcons crapped the bed against the Saints. But hey, we play the Saints again on Thanksgiving. If they ruin my Turkey Day, which is my favorite holiday of all time, I will be breaking stuff.
I'll make sure
that.
I'll make sure to wear my
ahead.
Saints gear. I'll make sure to wear my Saints gear on Thanksgiving.
And when I see you on the 1st, I will punch you in your crotchal area. Because we don't cuss on this show, so I say the crotchal area. Like, hey, Corey, good to see you again. Right there. Thank you, F you, bye. I'm not doing it. Anyway, guys, we thank you ever so much for tuning in every single week. Tell your friends. If you have a friend who likes NASCAR, if you have a friend who wants to hear commentary by two fans who just watch the race unabashedly and want to give you the best of the best, he's the stat guy. I'm the heat. I'm the guy that brings the fire and the flame. This has been, other than the Loki and Jabroni show, I'm listing it as like 1A, 1B. This has been probably my second favorite creative outlet ever. And Corey, I have you to thank, because if it wasn't for meeting you at that New Hampshire race a year ago when you were on NASCAR IndyCar Central and we got to talking, we wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
And it's fun to be able to talk racing with someone who appreciates racing. It's fun to have these discussions and talk about things because I probably have 3 friends that are NASCAR fans, but they're not as ingrained as you are. So I
Right.
do thank you. I appreciate you, and you're kicking outside your coverage. Chelsea's too beautiful for you. You need to find an
Yes.
ugly girl. You need to find an ugly girlfriend.
Oh.
I'm kidding,
All right.
Chelsea. I love you too, kid.
We both love
So
you.
for I'm in so much trouble. For Corey, my name is Chris. Eddie Focus is behind the scenes. This is the C&J Speedway Review. We'll talk to you next week with the recap of the Charlotte Roval.
Good night.